Honestly, the moment that really shifted everything for me was when I started noticing how the 1% of the people in the world operate who have the most amount of money, right? We look at the millionaires and the billionaires, and they aren't stressed out. They aren't overproducing. They're always on vacation. They have multiple vacation homes. They are traveling the world, seeing different countries, and they seem to have not a care in the world. And so I really had to sit and ask myself, if I had all the money in the world, wouldn't I also be that way? So instead of waiting for the money to arrive, what if, just what if, I started acting relaxed and regulated and self-assured and confident that it was going to find me, and maybe, just maybe, the money would feel welcomed enough to flow to me. And lo and behold, that is the moment that shifted everything for me. In the sense that, the sense of being regulated and confident and, letting all of the worries kind of melt away. Because if you notice one thing too, is a lot of people who are chasing abundance and feeling doubtful of abundance, they are the most stressed out, the most anxious, the most problem-ridden people, right? It's almost like they're looking for reasons to have an issue, and the issues just somehow find them. And a lot of times though, people think that when you say act like a billionaire, act like a millionaire, that means to spend like one. And that is not the case at all, because if that were the case, then you would put yourself further in a hole than you even started. But the reality is if you just start to carry yourself like $1 billion exists for you, if you just start to lay your head on your pillow at night and think, I am already a billionaire. How would I wake up in the morning? What would my activities be? What would my hobbies be? What kind of company would I keep? What would my environment look like? What kind of things am I consuming? It's acting as if that way, not spending as if. The one that I see most often is that, yes, I have to trade my time and my energy for a dollar amount. And we live in the most abundant time ever. There is more money available to us right now than there ever has been in the history. And so if we just look at it from that lens, like, we have so much modern advancements that really do allow us to work smarter and not harder. And a lot of times what I see though is people go from one extreme to the next. They either are working their butts off, always exhausted, don't have any free time or free space, and that's one way. And the other way is they are completely relaxed. They don't even remember the last time they put any effort in towards working or building a business or showing up for their job with their boss and, the people that rely on them. And there is a really beautiful balance, because there's no universal law that says you have to trade your time for money or trade your exhaustion for money or your energy for money. But there is a universal law that says when you welcome money, it will always find you. And it's the welcoming of it, right? It's not the, oh, well, I saw someone work super, super hard and then they became super, super rich. But that's not the case, because the hardest people working that we know, like our first responders, people that work, in hospitals and doctors and all of these people, like, they would be the most rich, right? Like the construction workers, the people who are working on buildings and roads and mechanics and people who actually exert physical labor, they would be the richest, but they're not, because that is not an actual law of abundance. That's a man-made one that society has created so that we can all kind of contribute to the powers that be, if you will. The 1% of the people in the world who have the most wealth, they are the most relaxed. I mean, it seems like they are just living it up. And yes, that can be true because they have systems in place that allow them to kind of free up their time, but they were already that way before the money came. You look at any success story and they always talk about, I worked I'm going to put air quotes here. I worked hard to get here, but that hard means that they did things that challenge their belief system. Because when you are doing something that challenges your belief system, it is very uncomfortable. You're going to want to quit. It's going to feel like nothing's working until it does. Because what happens is we end up staying comfortable with the pain rather than being uncomfortable with the abundance. So we end up on this loop and this cycle of, I'm going to stay exactly here, even though I know I'm miserable and it sucks, but because I don't trust myself enough to know that by putting myself out there and making myself vulnerable for the things that I desire are actually going to work, because our brain likes to choose what it knows. And even though the pain and the suffering and the anxiety and the burnout isn't what we desire, our brain's going to choose it time and time again naturally until we make it choose otherwise. Yes, it goes back to that. It goes back to staying comfortable in the things that you really don't love, right? It goes back to staying in the job where your boss doesn't treat you nice, or to working, paycheck to paycheck, or barely being able to put, basic human needs on your table for your family. And you're going to stick with it because you haven't felt safe trusting yourself, because that's what it boils down to, is being able to say, I trust myself enough to know that I'm going to make it happen. And that requires a lot of nervous system regulation, because when you are unregulated, your mind really can't think straight. Your body is kind of leading the way. And if your body feels panicky, your brain is going to put you into fight or flight, because your brain does not know what is actually real in front of you. So when it's going based off of the signals your body is sending to it. So if your body is sending signals of, oh my gosh, I'm nervous, I'm worried, I'm scared, your brain is going to send off the same endorphins of, I'm being chased by a bear, when really you're just looking at your bank account. So then that feeling is going to be stuck in your brain. So every time you look at your bank account, that same feeling is going to get sent to your brain, and it's going to cause you to kind of freeze up, or to ignore it, or to think like, oh my gosh, this is just the way that I have to be, just stuck in survival. But you have to almost train your body. So before you even, like, one very small example here is, before you even look at your finances, come at it from a regulated place. I like to call them money dates, where I like to get something that's a fun treat. For me, it's peanut M&Ms or a Coca-Cola. And so I like to trick my brain as like, okay, we get to enjoy something really fun before we kind of look at something that's a little daunting, right? If it's, if you're more of an environment kind of person, take yourself to your favorite coffee shop or your favorite park, or put on your favorite playlist, or wear your most comfortable clothes. It's all about creating the environment for your brain to not freak out. So you're going into it with the intention of, I'm going to stay calm and regulated, and I'm going to make sure that I feel good approaching my money. Absolutely. It 100% is, because if you think about, let's say you are really worried about the price of groceries, right? If that's something that always causes you some type of anxiety, it comes from somewhere. It comes from what your brain has stored through conversations, through lived experiences, through family dynamics, through how you, like, the conversation around groceries growing up in your home, right? So you might wonder, why do I always worry about the price of eggs? No one else seems to care about eggs. But there was an instance that happened in your childhood where eggs were a hot topic at the dinner table, and your family maybe never got a chance to eat eggs, because it was such a hot commodity that you and your family just couldn't have the means to experience, right? So it always boils down to asking yourself, okay, where does this belief come from? And when you can find it, it's not necessarily an opportunity to put blame on someone like, oh my gosh, thanks mom and dad for making me so scared of eggs. It's more of like, wow, I'm so glad I have this awareness. Now I know that it's not mine, and I can rewire that belief. I can go and buy a dozen eggs and realize that the sky isn't falling. Realize that I'm not going to put my family into overdrive by buying these eggs. It's almost like you're having to do a little bit of exposure therapy to show yourself that what you've worked it up in your mind is so much worse than what's actually happening at hand. And knowing where that belief kind of comes from and where started to stem in your brain is everything. And it's different for all of us, you know? I mean, we can't compare our money stories to others because they are so different, you know? I mean, I grew up with my great-grandparents living through the Great Depression in the United States, and so that's always been something in my lineage of the food scarcity, right? Like the water scarcity, the just making sure that that's never going to be a thing because it's been passed down for so many generations. But that can't necessarily be the same thing for others. And even though we're talking about food, that directly relates to our money and our relationship with money. The first step that you can take is truly and honestly understanding that money is a man-made construct, right? Like it is something that we created as men in society, okay? The universe does not operate in money, okay? So by just understanding that pure bottom line universal law is everything. But what I really want the listeners and you even to understand is you are always being asked to be provided for. It's a really beautiful dance that money, the energy of money kind of wants us to have, because money doesn't want us to suffer. Money doesn't want us to be anxious. Money doesn't want us to live in scarcity. That's all a man-made idea. And so if we can just really start to trust that money is all around us. And one thing that I actually told a few of my clients this morning was go outside and take a walk and just look at the abundance that is around you. Cars, houses, trees, plants, air, clouds, animals, birds tweeting, acorns on the ground, all these things. Like we live in a very abundant world. And because money is energy, just like everything else, when we start to see everything as abundance and an opportunity, money starts to follow with that. And another really great thing that I recommend doing, that I see a lot of beneficial things happen from, is writing yourself a letter as if the desired amount of money that, let's say it's, $50,000 is a desired amount of money that you would love. Write a letter to yourself in present tense of you receiving that money right now. Don't worry about the how or, oh my gosh, this is a scam. Just write a letter to yourself of like, oh my gosh, we just received $50,000, and really allow yourself to sit in that energy of it happening. And what would you do? Who's the first person you would call? Write that in the letter. Where is 10% of that money going to go to? What's the first thing you're going to splurge on with that money? What would that money change and do for your life? How does it feel to receive that amount of money? And you're going to notice real quick, your energy and your nervous system are going to get excited and relax and feel like it's already happening. And that is manifestation 101, is being the version of you who holds it, then doing, and then having. But one thing that's really coming to mind right now, and maybe this is very specific for who's listening, is you've got to stop comparing your journey to others. The journey that you have on planet Earth in this lifetime is yours and yours only. You aren't meant to experience things the exact same way that other people are. And that includes things that we all experience, like becoming a parent or losing a loved one, or, on the journey of learning to love yourself. Like it's not meant to be the exact same journey, because we're all here to experience life in our own beautiful ways. And when we need to be reminded of that, I always go back to just being in the present moment. And one really easy way that we can do that is by naming 3 things that you see. So for me, I see my computer, I see my water next to me, I see the sun shining in through the window. I'm going to say 2 things that I hear. I hear you speaking, and I also hear a little bit of background noise happening in my home. And then I say 1 thing that I'm grateful for, and I'm grateful for being here with you right now, speaking to your audience, because what that does is it brings me back to the present moment, because the only time that's actually real and that matters is what's happening right here and right now. Not what could happen in the next 10 minutes or 10 years, not what happened in the last 10 minutes or 10 years. Right now is the only time that matters.